Henry shouldn't exist in The Walking Dead, but I'm glad he did.
I can explain.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I want to talk about in this video. There has been a lot of contention around the character of Henry over the years in the later seasons of The Walking Dead. It's been all over the place. Some people love Henry as a character, some people hate Henry as a character. You know, I, for one, I always actually liked him. And I know that's crazy because I tend to call out a lot of things that I don't like in The Walking Dead. But this is one that I do with a big asterisk because I do not like what they did to get to Henry being the character. I don't like that his sole existence was to fill Carl's shoes. But I wasn't annoyed by him. He was never a character that I had a problem with, if that makes any sense. Like, I could point to many other characters in the Walking Dead universe at large that I have a lot of problems with. I'm thinking about Mo. I'm even thinking about Judith. I'm thinking about Tracy, and the list goes on of like all the kid actors in The Walking Dead. But I've never had a problem with Henry in that same sort of conversation. I mean, again, like I mentioned, and we're going to get into it in this video, but the worst is that he replaced a lot of Carl's stories. That's the worst. But I do think his actor who portrayed him, whose name I don't remember, and I'm mainly talking about older Henry and not younger Henry in this video, but the actor who portrayed him, I guess in both of those, because it's their brothers or something like that, they both did a good job. The main actor who was the older one, he did a good job, and he made you kind of fall in love with the character in a different way. And I think one of the biggest reasons why this worked is because it was Carol and Ezekiel's kid. Later in the show, they of course like adopted him and stuff like that. But I do think that was one of the biggest selling points for his character working, was that he had relation in some way, even though it wasn't blood relation, to Carol. And that's what made it kind of better. It's like you drop the bomb, but you soften the blow. That's the way I look at Henry. The bomb being dropped was Carl's death, but you softened it with Henry. And it could go in both ways, and that's exactly what I wanted to break down in this video. So I already kind of started to, but we're outlaying all the positives. One of the biggest is the actor who played him did a very good job. But also, I think what made it work really well, and this is where we get into another pro, is that the story was strong and it was being adapted from a really strong comic story, which was the whole Lydia thing and all of that. I think it worked really well in the show for the crew and the cast that they had. Of course, it would have been 1,000,001 times better if it was Carl that was filling the role of Henry, but at least Henry did it in a way that I wasn't like mad about, if that makes any sense. I think he was fine, and I think overall the Lydia story was very strong and it made it fun. So that's definitely another positive along with the actor. There's a couple good things like that, and I think he just brought forward a good heart to the show after we lost Rick, after we lost Carl and people like that. And I think that's a very strong thing. I genuinely do, and I'm a big fan of it. Another thing that I really genuinely enjoy with Henry was that he kind of followed Benjamin's story because, I mean, Benjamin was his brother. Or Richard, Benjamin? Yeah, that's his name, whatever. Benjamin was his brother, and he kind of followed that story, so he had strong ties to people like Morgan. He obviously had ties to Ezekiel, who later became his adopted father and all that stuff. But there was a connective tissue there that I really liked because I actually genuinely liked Benjamin. And the reason I bring that up is because it is absolutely true that child actors like Henry can exist in The Walking Dead and be likable. I genuinely think Henry was a prime example of that, but he's not Carl. And where we get into the negatives, which starts right now, is that Henry solely existed to replace Carl. I've already said it, but it's true. And to me, that's partly immersion breaking. Watching a show where I know for a fact that these storylines that we got were supposed to be for Carl just really bothers me. Now, again, if I didn't know of Carl's death, like if it wasn't a thing in the overall arc of The Walking Dead, whether it be the comics or whatever, I don't think I'd care so much. Like, so if I saw season 9 in a nutshell and didn't know anything about who Carl Grimes was or whatever, I think I would have had an easier time falling in love with the character than I did. And yes, I love the character. It's so dreamy. No, I'm just joking. Whatever. The point I'm making is that I think I would have been able to swallow the concept of Henry more if it wasn't for the fact that I know that he was replacing Carl in all those elements. And that's a real genuine problem, because when it comes to the Whisperer War, Carl was such an integral part, but no, Scott Gimple had to kill him off before his time, and that's absolutely ridiculous, but whatever, that's the reality of the situation, that's what happened. So, yes, it's not cool that that happened, but again, I think there's a lot of strongs there that point to it being a pretty successful casting. And again, I think that goes kind of on both fronts, but mainly with the older Henry. And yeah, I just actually liked Henry. Like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with him. I liked his story arc. I liked how it ended. I think all around, he was just a strong character. And yes, he wasn't Carl, but that's okay, because he wasn't supposed to be, but yes, he did take Carl's stories. They had to work in some of those big moments from the comics somehow. And obviously, I wish, among everything, I wish that it was Carl to be telling those stories. But you gotta play the cards you were dealt. You know what I mean? These writers had to come up with something, and I think Henry was a good substitute for Carl. I genuinely do. I liked where it took Carol's story. I like where it took Ezekiel's story. I like where it took Henry's story, and even Lydia's. All those parts intertwined into making a really good AMC Walking Dead unique story arc. So I'm okay with it. But it does irk me that he replaced Carl in a lot of ways. So it's very hit or miss, but I'd love to know what you guys have to say. I'm more or less just opening the dialogue. I don't have some like crazy thesis statement to say here. I just wanted to get my feelings out about how I feel about Henry overall. So let's bring it to the comments. Tell me how you feel. Did you like him? Did you hate him? Are you somewhere in the middle? I'd love to know. And while you're down there, be sure to give a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And until the next one, I will talk to you later. Peace out.